Alone, not alone. From inside my room, I can hear voices outside. I can hear life outside of my room. But here I am alone, living alone, in my own room. Hello, Assalamualaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear ELC590 students. You're with me again, Teech, for my third presentation for ELC590. Today, I'd like to share with you a common experience, my own experience. And my experience is actually about living alone. Sounds kind of sad, but it's really not. Because somehow, throughout my life, God has given me a challenge, and that is, there are many years in my life that I had to live alone. It's not actually sad, but I like to share with you now the experience of living and being alone. First of all, you have to understand that being alone does not mean that you are lonely. It's actually far from it. When you have to live alone, and I've had to go through that for a few years, quite a number of years in my life, when I was studying in England, and then when I was studying, working, living in New Zealand, it was the same thing. When I came back to Malaysia, it was the same thing. I was living alone. But here in Malaysia, it's different because I have my parents near me. I've got my brother, sister-in-law, my niece, my nephews, and all my family members, my friends. But when I was alone overseas, it felt lonely. But it's not really lonely, because being alone means that you have to think more about life. You think about yourself. You think about what are the things you've done, what are the good things you've done, what are the bad things you've done. So alone isn't lonely because you have yourself to talk with. You can talk to yourself. And that's what I do. When I'm alone, I talk to myself. Talking about life, talking about what I plan to do, talking about the bad things I've done, and how I want to repair them, given the chance. So, the first point is, in my experience, living alone doesn't mean that you become lonely. And like I said just now, thinking about life is one of the best experiences that you can gain by living alone. You think about basically what have you done so far? Have I done enough of good things? Have I said the right things to my mother? Have I said some good things to my father, to my ayah? Have I given support to my daughter, Altera? Have I said good things, supported her? So these are the things that you start thinking when you're alone. You start thinking also of negative things, definitely. You start thinking, oh no, what happens if I die alone? What happens if there's no one with me for the rest of my life? But then, you try to throw away all those bad thinking, bad thoughts, and you start thinking about the positive things. I have a family. I've got my mother, I've got my father, I've got my brother, I've got a few very close friends who support me. So you start thinking, not about the things that you do not have, but you start to appreciate, thinking about things that you have in your life, the good things you have. Living alone means appreciating. You appreciate time. Because when you live alone, somehow time becomes slow. And you look at the clock, the clock moves very slowly. Clock, tick, tick, tock. And because of that, you start to appreciate. When you wake up in the morning, even though you're alone, you feel so thankful to God. So thankful that you've got another chance, one more day to live on earth, one more day to do one more good thing, to cancel out the one bad thing that you might have done Maybe yesterday, maybe last week, maybe last month, maybe last year. So you start to appreciate what you have. Another experience that I got when I was living alone was that I start planning a lot for my future. Well, they are plans, they are dreams. Sometimes you get them, sometimes not. But you start planning. You start thinking about the future. You start thinking what happens when you get old. You start thinking about what happens when you start working. Start thinking about what are the good things you can do. So you start planning. Start planning. And even though you might feel lonely, you might feel there's no one around you, but with the plans that you make, it gives you hope. And hope, that one thing that you hold in you, means that you can go on with life. You can always stay positive, even though maybe your life is sad at that moment, maybe you don't have anyone around you. And no matter how you want to give up, because you still have hope, and you know that God is with you, you don't worry anymore. That's my experience. That's my personal experience of living alone. What about yours? I hope that you don't have to go through what I went through. Living alone is not easy, but it's a good way to reflect, to start thinking again. But what are the things we've been doing, what things we want to do tomorrow, and how we plan. If one day we become old like that man or that woman, when we become old, we plan for our future in the best ways possible. So that's my experience. That's my experience of living alone. And you start planning because you know you will live another day. Hopefully you pray that you will live another day. And again, you got the chance to do another good thing, to cancel out maybe one bad thing that you've done yesterday, last week, last month, or last year. And that was my experience. Living another day got me up to this moment. And I hope, like I said, I hope that you don't have to go through living alone like what I went through. But still, once in a while, try being alone. Try. Stay away from people, stay away from all the noises, and start thinking. Thinking about your future, your journey, and thinking about the good things, the bad things you've done, thinking about what dreams you have and how do you want to make them real. That was my experience. Thank you for listening to me. I'll see you again, hopefully, in my next presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.